Hello everyone, Marcor255 here and welcome back to the Sonic series. I'm going over 20 different Sonic games within this thing. Here they are. Today is Sonic Generations, so let's get into the video. How'd you like the reference with that intro? Sonic Generations is peak. Okay, I should probably talk more about this game than just that, but what can I really say that hasn't been said already? Even when it came out, this was one of the most critically acclaimed games in the franchise, and still is, all due to the exceptional level design, constant high-speed action, and stunning visuals. This is a game which I think anyone can enjoy, which isn't something I can say about most in this franchise. But why? Why does this game reach that insanely high status for me? Are the classic levels in the game any good? What about the extra challenges, the bosses, and the story? There's a lot people sort of gloss over when talking about this game, so I'll explain how it all comes together to create one of the most consistent games in the franchise to date. Sonic Generations is heaps of fun, and here's why. Yeah, this game easily has some of the most fun boost levels to date in my opinion. I'd argue it's probably the most consistent in terms of quality. There's not one I'd consider a 4 out of 10, yes, even that one. So let's not waste any time and just gush already. Generations' interpretation of Green Hill is quite possibly the best version of the stage there is. What truly makes it work from a visual standpoint is that it's not just Green Hill. It takes the basic ideas established in that very first entry, and goes wild with what could possibly be presented. There's this section with a cool bridge tile set that fits like a glove, and this underground segment never fails to excite me. Plus there's this awesome giant chopper that chases you into the sky with some insane camera angles. This is what you do when bringing back an older environment. Take its iconic attributes, but also add onto what has been established in authentic ways that only further the memorability. Oh, and the gameplay is immaculate, working as a brilliant starting point for learning the boost formula, whilst also being shockingly fun to replay. All of the alternate routes available somehow feel like they echo the way Sonic 1's Green Hill did it. It's so natural. Of course there's a secret route by stomping the bridge. Of course you'd have to jump here swiftly to reach a wall jumping segment. It's honestly insane how much you appreciate this level after completion, and it's one of 9 similarly made experiences. Green Hill is just wonderful, working as a more simplified level in comparison to the rest. Chemical Plant is insane, having some of the toughest and unique shortcuts in the game. Right out of the gate, you have to jump onto one of these other tubes revolving around you, then precisely boost into a red ring, and top it off with a super tight lightspeed dash. This is absurdly hard, but so damn satisfying to pull off, and it looks super cool. The rest of the level isn't as absurd as this, thankfully, emphasizing speedy 2D platforming with a risk of falling into the water. This level has such a unique and satisfying flow to it, especially if you do it right. I'd say it's one of the best examples of compelling 2D boost Sonic, as even the slower routes are fun. I also love how the plant slowly starts to blow up further in the level, eventually becoming absolute chaos by the final quarter. There's so many momentum-based reactions, this skip is damn awesome, it's another banger. One of the few boost Sonic levels that truly understands how to do 2D. Sky Sanctuary is widely regarded as one of, if not the best level in this entire game, and whilst I can totally understand this mindset, I don't know, I just don't really find it as thrilling as some later ones. It's definitely the best of the 3 classic zones represented here at least. It does basically everything you'd want it to do. Wide open areas to platform across, creative alternate routes that just get it, and insanely cool moments of spectacle, all crammed into this delightful example of what Boost Sonic can be. I think what makes me think lesser of this one compared to the others is the platforming, unfortunately, as whilst it does add a ton to the overall package here, the controls really do not complement the design. When you're speeding around the place it works perfectly, but these slower moments here, I really do wish I could enjoy these moments to death, but when they can easily ruin a run purely because I can't figure out how to jump up a small ledge, it becomes extremely difficult to tolerate. The level does away with most of this towards the end, even if these platforms here just kinda disappear for no reason. So yeah, definitely deserving of its top tier status, just not one I personally enjoy more than others. Speed Highway is absolutely one of my favorites in the game, and one of my favorite stages in the franchise. It's one of the ones I replayed the most, reaching a time of 1 minute 40 seconds and 78 milliseconds. And I wonder why nobody finds me attractive. This level simply never lets up, with every single moment having so much adrenaline and excitement, alongside some of the most creative skips in the game. From grabbing the helicopter at the start to jumping over this ramp and into a red ring, skipping a major 2D segment, alongside everything else adds up to one of the most in-depth and fun levels in any Sonic game. I love the way they adapted the iconic moment of running down the giant skyscraper. Speeding alongside the cars towards the end is challenging yet riveting, and this final loop mirrors a memorable one from the original game, topping off one of the nicest cakes Sonic Team has ever cooked up. I could gush all over every single detail in this place for hours if I tried hard enough, but it would probably become incoherent after a while, so I'll leave you with this. Speed Highway is an absolute must-play. I believe anyone, anywhere, can find some enjoyment out of it. City Escape is sorta similar to Sky Sanctuary for me, as whilst I do love the references towards the level design present in the original in the open 3D segments, they feel kind of awkward to maneuver through in comparison to something like Speed Highways. It feels nice to get right, but not as nice as this, you know? There's also a lengthy boarding segment at the beginning, which does get old after a good while of time attacking. The 2D segment is good on the top route, but not that fun on the lower ones, and the final truck chase goes on for a bit too long. Why is this level fun again? Well, when I say something isn't that good in this game, I really mean it's like a 6 out of 10, as despite all the elements weighing this level down, it still somehow manages to be really fun when done right. And I know I said that the truck chase at the end was kinda boring, but visually, it's a marvel, as that thing has some buzzsaws now for no reason. It also goes onto the dang wall at the very end, nearly reaching you, until it gets snagged by another building, being an insanely fun ending to this level. Gameplay-wise, this is probably one of the weakest ones in the game, thanks to having only around 2 seconds of actual 3D gameplay at most. But that somehow doesn't make it a bad one at all. Seaside Hill is one I've come around a lot on, as now that I am good at the game, I've realized just how masterfully created the level truly is. Tell me if you've heard this one before, but the slow can be skipped. I know, crazy idea, but it actually makes the level more fun, as you can go fast. It feels like there are like 7 routes or so that I do not know about. It's so densely packed and well made. I love the bit where you can choose between the slower route below with the turtles, and the higher route on the car thingy from the OG game. The water segment in 2D is somehow insanely fun. There is many a sneaky shortcut to be discovered throughout the whole thing, and it truly feels like a complete love letter to the joyous experience that was the original stages. I love how it combines aspects of both Seaside Hill and Ocean Gate, which is super apparent at the ending with the huge wheel things. The music even combines both stage themes together seamlessly, like, come on! I'd honestly say, without a doubt, that Seaside Hill is the best stage in the entire game, perfectly blending a mixture of high-speed platforming and reactions, breathtaking visuals and set pieces, and creative gimmicks. As for my favourite stage in the game, well, there are too many good options for me to pick and choose, to be honest. I guess this stage is up there, huh? Crisis City is the first stage I really tried to get good at, and I still feel like I barely know how to play it. Much like how Chemical Plant is a good example of 2D level design in Boost Sonic, I'd say that this is a fantastic example of slower paced Boost Sonic, specifically in the first half. It feels like what City Escape attempted fully realized, as there's a much more consistent flow even when you're not boosting, which I heavily encourage you to do. It becomes somewhat tight here, and whilst the controls still aren't as smooth as they wish they were, I don't come across nearly as many problems here as with Sky Sanctuary. I'm always super surprised at how respectful the stage is to 06 too, as this was directly within the era of YouTubers beginning to cover it. There's so many references to set pieces and architecture, and the final quarter is an obvious callback to the Mach Speed segment. I do really love this level a lot, but I feel like the structure of it is a major flaw. It's basically split into two, with the first half being primarily in 3D, and the second being in 2D. I do like this segment, especially if you learn the tricks around it, but I think a more even spread of 2D and 3D throughout the level would have been better, as I would have loved to play more segments like this. It's not the end of the world, at least. Well, okay, it is, it's Crisis City, but I still have a blast going through this thing, and it holds a lot of emotional weight for me. Rooftop Run is a special case, as it's the only level in the game to come from one so similar in gameplay style. I know Colors is next, but that's a very unique boost game, so just gimme a sec. This makes the level feel sort of like a cheap copy in some instances, but those instances are like milliseconds long. It's still one of the most joyous, entertaining levels to play. It's not nearly as long as the OG, unfortunately, making it feel sorta streamlined, but sometimes it's nice to play something short and sweet. There are things I think it does better too, such as the barrel throwing incline and the huge jump into the sky post clock tower. It's a shame that segment is so much smaller though. Sorry, I keep getting distracted. Flying battery being added to the finale as an extra type of laser to worry about is a great detail, and the atmosphere is arguably even more cheerful and exciting. Despite me overall preferring the OG Rooftop Run, this is absolutely not a bad introduction to the perfection that is this level theme. This is another one of my most played stages in the game, and that's all thanks to both the originals and this new one's greatness. Well, I think we all know what's coming, so let me just say it outright. Planet Wisp is the weakest level in the game. What a unique opinion. However, I would never go as far as to say it's bad. I think it's bad for Generation standard, but it would absolutely be a top tier stage in games like Colors or Forces. Let's start with the opening. It's one of the best segments in any level of this game. Wow, 2 unique opinions in a row. Being real, however, it's genuinely shocking to me how varied, unique, and challenging this masterful opening is. It's a task and a half to attempt to get through this thing with 0 mistakes, and this quality is kept up for a good portion of the level. Yeah, these 2D segments aren't as good, but they're still really fun. Okay, this is starting to get awkward, but there's still a good flow. You lost me here. Yeah, I think the only real part of this level I'm not a fan of is this final bit. These platforms are kinda boring, and there's a bit too much of a reliance on the rocket wisp. Well, hey, at least they brought back one of the more speed-focused wisps, and not like Cube or Hover, which both would have turned the pace down exponentially. The visuals also take a nosedive at this point, going from the genuine beauty of the light green grass and purple water, to a lot of dull oranges and browns. I get that you want to represent Eggman's takeover of the planet with a stark contrast, but just one of these sections would have worked. I think if this pulley took you to a part combining the two looks more, potentially referencing the boss of the area in a unique set piece, the level may not be as universally panned. The level is significantly longer due to this final section compared to all the others as well, so mic drop. It's still a good, fun level in the grand scheme of things, but a pretty flaccid way of ending the main levels as a whole. It could have been so cool, man, it's Planet Wisp! That concludes the discussion on the modern levels of Sonic Generations. As I stated before, this is easily one of the most consistent 3D games in terms of the quality of the levels. There's not a single major dud here. Yeah, Planet Wisp is noticeably weaker, and I personally feel as if City Escape could have done more, but every other one of the 9 levels is packed with endless amounts of replayability. I can seriously see myself playing these masterpieces until I die, and I'll never even come close to the world records. So, that's the game, right? It's what everybody talks about, so surely there's nothing else I need to cover. Oh right, this is Generations, so that means there's classic gameplay styles too. It's high time we talk about... When was the last time you saw somebody talk about classic Sonic in this game? The discussion is entirely centered around modern, which is totally fair, those stages are insanely good. But this makes it especially difficult to figure out if people even like the classic stuff. In my opinion anyway, I think that these stages are really fun, and that's that. I love how they play with 3D, like with the creative camera shots and playing on different levels of depth, and there's a larger focus on cool set pieces than your average 2D Sonic. None of these stages really blow me out of the water in terms of gameplay, so I don't really have a lot to say about them. Let's cover these stages in a similar way to the Black Knight ones, briefly touching on my thoughts, then giving a score as it feels right here for some reason. Here we go! Green Hill is a good time. Being the first stage you play through, it makes sense as to why it doesn't really do any crazy things, but that makes it not the most interesting one to go back to, around a 6.5 out of 10. Chemical Plant thankfully isn't as automated as the OG's Act 1, and I think it's overall more interesting than Green Hill here. It's probably because there's more unique mechanics at play, and there's a significantly better flow to experience than that stage too. A 7 out of 10 for me. I never realised how little these stages pull their punches at first, as Sky Sanctuary also doesn't really do anything too crazy. I think this is where they get the gameplay, however, as there's tons of routes to discover and experience throughout the whole thing, even ending with 3 different clear paths to take, basically screaming at you, "Replay me!" It's a damn fun one, despite the smaller focus on memorable set pieces compared to the later ones. 8.5. Speed Highway is a great example of what this game does with classic Sonic design, and I think it's very interesting. Instead of making you explore to find certain routes, the routes are very clear to you. The challenge comes from executing the trick to reach it. There's a ton of moments where a jump directly after a spin dash will lead you perfectly onto the next spring, actually working similarly to Boost Sonic skips. It's different, yet it still works, making Speed Highway another banger. 8.5. City Escape is where the crazy set pieces truly begin, as the truck chase basically lasts the whole level. This thing is relentless, and somehow doesn't make the thing a giant auto-scroller. In fact, it encourages you to try and outrun it in some creative ways, as it tears through your platforms and spawns more enemies. There's also this really cool skateboarding segment where you react in time to the upcoming ramps to gain some serious airtime. This is one of the best classic stages in the game. 9 out of 10. Seaside Hill has a really good second half and a pretty mixed first. I don't know, even on the faster routes, this first segment doesn't really do anything too crazy. Once you're out of this building, the level becomes a lot better, clearly depicting what routes you can go on, and which ones are faster. I do think it becomes a little old watching the same canon cutscene for the 7th time, but at least this final segment mirroring Ocean Gate's finale is fun. A 7 out of 10, that opening really sours it all. Finally, the modern era stages, and Crisis City goes insane. It feels very reminiscent of Speed Highway gameplay-wise, and that's a damn good thing as this level is super fun. With some of the best feeling shortcuts and most satisfying leaps, this level will keep you on your toes throughout its whole runtime, and that's before the fire tornado takes the goalpost away from you. You then have to platform along the rubble picked up in one final segment, making this level absolute cinema all things considered. 9 out of 10. Tough to master, yet insanely enjoyable to do so. And then you get Rooftop Run, man, like, dude! It perfectly blends memorable locales and set pieces from the OG game with an entirely new and fun layout. It's ridiculous. We even get this insane segment climbing the clock tower, avoiding the laser bots, and striking 12 on the clock, leading Flying Battery to slam face first into it. I originally thought this last bit was a tad too boring for my taste, but then I learned of a faster route to the right. It's brilliant. Thank you, Vector the Crocodile. Yeah, this is another 9 out of 10. It's super fun. Sadly, you all know what's coming. Again, as Planet Wisp is the weakest one here. I honestly blame it on the heavy use of the Spike Wisp, as it just does not control well here in the slightest. It's so difficult to change direction, the gear turning isn't the greatest mechanic out there, it feels very cramped thanks to the close-up camera, the planet lasts like 10% of the level. There's a laundry list worth of problems with the stage, and yet, I see the vision. There are fleeting moments I enjoy, like staying on these falling platforms for long enough to reach an alternate route. It's the closest thing the game has to a bad stage, but I still wouldn't actively call it that. 5 out of 10. And there we have it. Classic Sonic stages in this game always shock me, as I always forget that they are actually fun until I'm playing them. One of the key reasons they are so fun is because of the spin dash. For some reason, the spin dash in this game can make you go at speeds classic Sonic has never gone before or since, leading to some insane skips and a heavier focus on speedrunning. Like I said many times before, I much prefer the exploration side of 2D Sonic, but these stages are a delightful example of speed-focused gameplay done right. Getting a new time is always satisfying, and paired with the exceptional 3D levels, It makes for one of the most consistent games in the franchise to date. Surprisingly enough, however, we're nearly done with this game. The devs put so much into the main 18 stages here that it makes the rest of the game have so much less to talk about, while still being interesting topics, of course. Why don't we get into... The bosses are pretty dang cool. There are 3 rivals and 3 major bosses, 1 classic of each and 2 modern of each, not including the final boss for both. Metal Sonic can be quite enjoyable, mainly because of the awesome Starter Speedway remix, but it's extremely simplistic. The same goes for the Death Egg robot, really contrasting the OG's difficulty, but I do like that they did something different for the second phase. Shadow's a pretty creative one, literally being a race to collect these purple orb things, but again, it can be beaten in a minute. Perfect Chaos, however, now this is a fight. Well, okay, it's realistically a level with boss fight packaging, but that's what makes it work. It's a blast making your way over to this giant beast with this very unique Open Your Heart remix playing, and even the 2D segments can be fun if done well. Future games, take notes. If you don't know how to make a cool boss fight, just make a level. Silver's kinda iffy. I can't ever remember how to actually do it every time, so I just wind up running forward until I eventually give up and look it up, only to realise I'm a massive idiot. On paper it's a better Metal Sonic, but I think that poor communication is what makes me think it's weaker, sadly. A similar story takes place for the Egg Dragoon, as it's not nearly as enticing as the exceptional fight from Unleashed. It actually feels like the other daytime fights from that game, but more forgettable somehow. This thing can lose its limbs. Yeah, the Time Eater final boss is as infuriating, boring, and terrible as people say it is, sadly. You just go forward, dodge the thingies, go forward, dodge the thingies, go forward. Yeah! So yeah, a lot of the fights are passable, one of them is really good, and another is waiting for the bus after a long day of work simulator. Another thing people don't really talk about with this game that's actually kinda major to its progression is the challenges. These are small missions that are usually themed around a certain character, gimmick, or idea, with their own S-ranks. Not all of these are treated equally, of course, there are some real stinkers in here, but the good ones are really fun. I especially love this Planet Wisp one, which takes, like, every stage gimmick and asks you to platform around them. There's an argument that this is more fun than the actual Planet Wisp, it's seriously that well designed. On the contrary, we got stuff like this one with Vector, where you gotta hit his music notes back at him. It's especially fun when the homing attack refuses to cooperate. On classic Sonic side of things, it's really the same. I like the City Escape one, which tasks you with staying on the skateboard for as long as possible in the course. There's also a lot of unnecessary ones, like these doppelganger races. If you got an S rank in the normal stage, which you probably did, you beat this challenge too. Overall, these aren't necessarily my cup of tea, I much prefer the Unleashed DLC stage route of bonus challenges, but it can be a nice reprise after a long while of tackling one stage. Throughout the game, you unlock a wide selection of skills to equip to both hedgehogs, giving them different perks. I actually think this mechanic has a ton of potential to it, especially with the limited amount you can have on at once due to strict restrictions. Here are some of my favourites. Blast Off lets you press boost a little earlier than normal during the ready, set, go, and also gives your jump some insane airtime during this boost. I love jumping at the opening of Planet Wisp and barely making it over these ledges. There's the one that increases your top speed, which is obviously a major boon, alongside the one that increases acceleration. For Classic Sonic, they're a lot more situational, making them less versatile overall, but I do like the drop dash for obvious reasons. Can someone at Sonic Team please explain why the drop dash is a skill for Classic Sonic, but always on for Modern? It gets in the way sometimes for Modern, add an option to turn it off please, but yeah. I'd love to see this idea implemented in a future installment, especially if global timings make use of them. You can see what skills people are using and compare them to your loadout. Finally, yes, we're already at that point, I can't make a Generations video without covering the narrative for pretty clear reasons. This was during the let's not give a shit about the characters era of games, so the plot here is really simplistic to a fault. If you saw my Colors video, you know that I actually kinda like that game's story. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking these characters into a less serious narrative, and there are some fun moments in that game. It's not the funniest game out there, neither is it completely absent of plot holes and missed potential, but for what it sets out to do, I think it works. Now, Generations on the other hand, Yeah, this one was the true beginning of the downfall. Keyword was, as the dialogue was completely rewritten and dubbed over for the re-release alongside Shadow Generations. Now, this rewrite doesn't come without any problems. They didn't redo any animations, so some actions don't work well with the new lines. This is blatantly obvious with the scene after you save Knuckles as classic Sonic, thanks to the implication that he eated Angel Island. I can't lie though, that's just funny to me. People also have the problem of the shoehorned in references, like how Sonic immediately references the time stones after the realization that time travel's happening. Do you guys remember what this game is though? The whole point is retreading old ground as a tribute to this large franchise. Why should it be a problem that references are used? At the end of the day, however, the new rewrite changed my opinion from one of distaste to one of indifference. It's serviceable, and that's certainly better than an annoying plot. Also, thank you for changing Shadow's line in the finale, it's much better, yippee! Well, that's all of the major aspects of the game covered. All that's left is the really solid music. Because of the nature of this game reusing older level themes, all the music is remixed from the OG levels. Some of it is very similar, if not basically the same as those classic tracks, but others go in wildly different directions that create an entirely new song to bop to. Let's begin, why don't we? Sky Sanctuary Act 2 is a brilliant new iteration of this classic tune. It really feels like that amazing original version, given a new orchestral paint job. Speed Highway Act 1 is a song you'd hear at a rave. I can just imagine the blaring lights, everyone jumping to the beat, the dance floor completely packed. This is a personal favourite of mine, topping the original honestly. City Escape Act 1 is one of the most iconic remixes from this game, and for damn good reason. It breathes new life into this absolute classic by just adding to it. The atmosphere of this version is vastly different, yet it's still the same song at the end of the day. I already mentioned how Seaside Hill Act 2 combines both Seaside Hill and Ocean Gates themes into one track, and it works seamlessly. If you've never heard the originals on their own, I seriously doubt you'd even think that they were separate songs originally. It fits like a glove. The Open Your Heart remix for Perfect Chaos' fight is definitely not for everyone. It's one of the most different remixes of them all in this game, leading to it being quite controversial. I definitely really like it, not as much as the OG of course, so I'll play it and you can come to your own conclusion. Crisis City Act 1 always stood out to me for whatever reason, even before I became familiar with the original. Now that I am, however, I am amazed at how they implemented the iconic motifs into this, like the synth bringing this part in. Rooftop Run Act 2 feels exactly like what the actual level is in comparison to the original. Still as exceptional you remember, but it doesn't have that same source as the classic. That's just my opinion of course, I still really love it. Planet Wisp Act 2 is exactly what you'd expect, about as good as the OG. There are some slight tweaks between each, so it's really difficult to pick a favourite. Maybe you'll come up with one. Of course I had to cover Rival Battle Metal Sonic. It's Stardust Speedway, a CD track, and you know how much I love that soundtrack. This one just gets it, man. Playing it will speak louder than I ever could. And that's about it. There's probably a remix for everyone here, so if none of these appealed to you, just go onto the official releases and look around. As for my thoughts as a whole, much like the game as a whole, there's some fantastic stuff here. I think there was room for a ton more remixes, however, perhaps as unlockables with skill points, as they have no use once you get them all. There's a ton of songs throughout the franchise I'd love to see with a new interpretation, like Palm Tree Panic, Green Forest, Mystic Mansion, Wave Ocean, Skyscraper Scamper. I could go on, really. This, of course, isn't a problem with the game, it's just something I think would have been pretty neat. Let's end this. Sonic Generations was absolutely necessary for when it came out, all thanks to the reputation the franchise had at the time. Colors did kickstart a comeback, but Generations solidified it. It was when many people tuned back into the series after 06 crashed and burned, and there's still a good reason as to why. It is one of the most enjoyable and exciting love letters a franchise can get, and there's so many ways this formula could be tied to other franchises too. Imagine a Zelda Generations with remasters of various dungeons throughout the franchise, or a Mega Man Generations taking levels and bosses from every game currently out. The possibilities are never ending with this formula, and I am so glad Generations exists as a look into what could be. This is a must-play game for any Sonic fan out there, no matter what your preference in gameplay style is. There'll be something you enjoy, no matter what. See you in the next one, where we will take a look at a dark crevice of the series, before we reach the final 2 ginormous episodes. We're in the endgame now, goodbye.